Hello students, today we are going to study about the chapter 1, that is force. Okay, and the last time in the school we were discussing about this chapter. Actually we had completed few topics even, like what is actually types of motion, rotational and translational motion, even the mixture of these two types of motion, trans-rotational motion. Okay, and the same way we had discussed about the torque. Up to this level we had discussed in the last time in the school, but now I would like to start this chapter from the beginning. Fine, so that it would be comfortable for those students who are not present at that time. Okay, so let's start properly the chapter again. That force, actually it is not completely a force chapter, because about the force we had discussed in 9th class, and it is something related to the rotational effect of force. Okay, so first thing we need to understand that what is rotational motion. So we will start from the categorization of types of motion. So let's start from this types of motion. We are not talking about uniform or non-uniform motion like categorization. We are talking about simply translational motion and rotational motion. So first thing, actually there are majorly two types of motion, but there is another type of motion also, which is an extra knowledge for you, that translational motion second rotational motion, and the third is actually the mixture of these two types of motion. We should say trans-rotational motion. Okay, so we are having three types of motion. So first thing we will try to define these two types of motion, so it will be clear for you also. So let's start from this translational motion. Actually with this type of motion we are already familiar. When we talk about translational motion, so let's talk about the body. In this chapter we will discuss about, or we will imagine a body as a system of particles. Means a body is made up of multiple particles or many particles, and that's why we call them a system of particles. So such body which is made up of many particles, we will call it a system of particles. So suppose here I am just representing three particles, these three particles only, to define this type of motion. So if a body is in translational motion, all three particles must move in the same direction with the same velocity. Okay, so that at that time you would say that the body is translational motion. Means all these three particles 1, 2, 3 must move in the same direction with the same velocity v. So in that case you will call it translational motion. Means the force which is being exerted on the body actually is same for each and every particle. Means the body is being accelerated in the same direction by every aspect of the particle. Okay, so this type of motion is called translational motion. So simply whenever we push a table on the floor, so obviously all the particles which are lying inside the table or on the table, they are moving in the same direction with the same velocity. So that type of motion is simply called translational motion. Okay, and what about rotational motion? So whenever we are exerting, suppose for an example we are talking about this disc. Okay, and if I just talk about these two particles, let's name them only these two, 1 and 2, and we are exerting a tangential force over it, some kind of tangential force F. Okay, so what will happen, and another tangential force equivalent in opposite direction, say F. So what will happen? This particle will start to move with a velocity in this direction, and this particle will start to move with a velocity but in opposite direction. Okay, so ultimately the body start to rotate about an axis. That axis about which the body is rotating is called pivot point. P-I-V-O-T, pivot, simply called pivot. And this point is actually stationary in nature, because about this point the body is rotating. Okay, there will be no movement in this point. So that type of motion is called rotational motion. Means when the particles of a system or particles of a body, they are moving or circulating around a point, around an axis, about an axis, at that time the motion of the body is called rotational motion. Now what is translational motion? I hope you have an idea about this, that rotational motion is a combination of translational motion and rotational motion. For an example, you are just trying to move a ball on a floor. This one. So obviously these particles of the ball, they are moving in opposite direction at a moment. Okay, they are moving if the ball is moving by rotating about an axis, this. But ultimately overall ball is moving in a particular direction, like this. Ultimately the entire ball, all the particles lying inside the ball are moving ultimately in the particular direction. So it is a combination of translational motion and rotational motion. That's why we call it transrotational motion. But it is quite something extra for your syllabus, but you must know about this thing for further studies. So I hope this thing is very clear for you, the translational motion, rotational motion and transrotational motion. Definitions are given in the book, so you can write the definitions. Okay, so let's move to the next topic, that what is the rotational effect of force. Means we are just focusing on this type of motion only in this chapter, means rotational motion, because translational motion we had studied already in 9th class, equations of motion, acceleration in a body. Okay, so in this chapter we will study about only rotational effect of force. I should write this thing, that we are going to study about rotational effect of force. This is the sole purpose of the chapter. Okay, so let's start from this thing. So our next topic is what is rotational effect of force and how can we measure it. Fine. So you can pause the video to copy the content, and then you will move further. Okay. Fine. Let's start to discuss about rotational effect of force. Rotational effect of force, or we call it moment of force, or the simple name of it is torque, T-O-R-Q-U-E, torque. Okay, and you must have heard about this thing in many advertisements of bikes and the cars, the torque of the engine. Okay, so what is actually the torque? Whenever we talk about the rotational effect of force, we need a new type of physical quantity to study about the rotational effect, because the linear effect of force simply can be studied in the terms of force. There is no problem. Force is mass into acceleration. There we are talking about a linear acceleration. But whenever we talk about we can say rotational effect, so body is not moving permanently, or body is not being displaced permanently from its initial position. It is actually being rotated around and about an axis. Okay, so at that time the general formula of force is not sufficient to define its rotational effect. That's why we need a new physical quantity to define it, and that physical quantity is simply called torque or moment of force. And let me tell you one interesting fact, that whenever we study about the rotational effect of anything, rotational effect of force, rotational effect of mass, we use this word moment of. The word moment of is simply stands for rotational effect actually. Like rotational effect of linear momentum is called angular momentum, okay, or a moment of linear momentum we can call it. Rotational effect, if we study about inertia during rotational effect, obviously inertia will also show its effect in rotational motion. Like if in your bicycle, if you keep stranding your bicycle on the strand, and you just we can say start to rotate the keep rotating for some time. It is trying to be in rotational motion. Okay, so basically this is a kind of an inertia of rest, inertia of motion. So it's a kind of inertia of rotational motion. And if I ask about that, can we calculate this inertial nature? So yes, if that thing will be measured in terms of moment of inertia. So this is the fact that whenever we study about the any rotation effect of any physical quantity, it will be termed as moment of. So right now we are studying about rotational effect of force. We call it moment of force, or the general name is torque. So how can we measure it? So first thing, let's take an example to measure it. So actually I am having a rod right now, and this rod has been fixed from its one end. Let's say this one. It has been fixed, means it is not allowed to move. Okay. So this point which is not allowed to move, we call it pivot point or simply pivot. Why we call it pivot? You will realize it soon. So if I exert a perpendicular force, see right now I am talking about the perpendicular force. If I exert a perpendicular force F on this point or on its another end, so obviously this end will try to move linearly. But since if I try to represent its one end like a particle and all the constituent particles of this rod, so obviously all these particles are bonded together by, we can say, metallic bond or intermolecular forces. Okay, this is just an assumption. Obviously a rod is made up of many tiny millions of atoms, but right now I am just assuming it is like this one. Okay, so this particle is trying to move linearly, but not only this force is being exerted here, actually the intermolecular force are also here, due to which this ball is not free to move. It is being held by the other particle, which is also being held by the other particle. So in this way, ultimately we are actually they are experiencing two forces, not one. The another unknown force is acting in this direction, which we will actually try to define in upcoming topic, that is your uniform circular motion. At that time I will try to define this one. Actually it's a kind of centrifugal force, but right now I am not talking about this. So ultimately the rod will not move linearly in this direction, actually due to these two forces effect. One force in this direction, another force in this direction. So ultimately the rod will move angularly like this. It is called the combined effect of two forces. You can try at your home. Like two students, they are trying to push a table, one in this direction, another one perpendicular to this. So table will move angularly. In that way, I am not going so deep in this topic. You will study that thing in 11th class if you take science. So ultimately the rod will move angularly like this. So it would be the next imaginary position or expected position of the rod, and if you keep pushing the rod perpendicularly by a force F, so the next time the same process will get repeated. So next time the rod will get shifted in this direction, next time again in this direction, next time again in this direction. So if you keep pushing the rod perpendicularly, ultimately the rod will be start to moving, or we can say rod will start to move in a circular path. Okay, so this type of effect of force is called rotational effect of force or torque. To measure this effect, we need to understand a new physical quantity that is called the torque. So what is actually torque? Mathematically we try to define this word. Torque is represented by tau, the inverted J, okay, mirrored J. So it is called tau. It is pronounced as TOW, tau. So torque tau is simply directly proportional to the force. Greater force you are applying, greater rotation effect you will experience. Second thing, torque is also directly proportional to the perpendicular distance between the pivot about which the body is being rotated and the force point. It is called the perpendicular distance. See, later on I will try to introduce the universal formula, but right now I am assuming that the force is being applied perpendicularly on the rod. So it is also directly proportional to R. How? Greater, we can say perpendicular distance is greater torque you will experience, greater rotation effect you can produce. let me tell you how this thing actually comes in action. If I try to combine these two terms, so you will get tau proportional to F into R. Right now, or as a we are taking constant as a 1, I will prove it that how can we introduce 1 as a constant here, because we are talking about maximum torque. So F into R. So the generalized formula of torque is force into perpendicular distance, or I should write here perpendicular distance between force point F and pivot. Okay, so this thing is called a torque. This is the generalized formula, and if I try to find out its unit, Newton, and distance is in meter, so its SI unit is Newton meter. Torque's SI unit is Newton meter. Now a question arises here that okay, we get an idea that torque is direct proportional to force, means greater force gives greater rotational effect, no problem is there. But how can we say that it is direct proportional to R also? Let me tell you how. Okay, let's take an example. It's a very generalized example. We know about a door of your room. It is connected on hinges and a knob through which we can move it. Do one thing, you try to move the door with the help of another point, or use a nail to by emptying a nail inside the door at a small distance from the hinge. Means the knob is the part, we can say farthest from the hinge, and this point, and try to open the door. Try to open the door from this point. So at which distance, if I say this distance is R1, this entire distance is R2, so from which distance you need to apply greater force? Just experience it. Obviously you will experience this thing that on a smaller distance we need to exert greater force to create the same rotational effect. Keep this thing in mind. I am trying to keep the same rotational effect. I need to apply greater force for R1. So you can say the F is inversely proportional to distance R for the same rotational effect. Means for the smaller distance you need to apply greater force. And here we are keeping one thing as a constant. What? The rotational effect. We are trying to keep the rotational effect same. We are trying to open the door with the same speed. Okay. So here I am keeping the torque constant because the rotational effect of force is called torque. So F equals to tau upon R. So what will you get? Tau equals to F into R. That's why F tau is direct proportional to perpendicular distance. I hope this generalized formula is very clear for you. And the second thing, I will try to introduce a universal formula also. Universal means if we have exert a force at a different angle, not 90 degree, at a different angle. So what will be the formula? So this formula only works when we take R as a perpendicular distance between the force and the pivot point. Okay? So by pausing the video you can copy this also. And you can write the definition. Mathematical definition is very simple. The torque is the product of the force and the perpendicular distance between the force and the pivot point. Okay? And its SI unit is Newton meter. So let's try to derive a universal formula for torque. Again I am taking the same example of the rod. This time I will try to represent it by a single line. Okay? And the pivot point, let's say PIVOT pivot. Sometimes it is called pivot. And the force, this time I am exerting a force little bit angular. Okay, so this time this force is being exerted angularly other than 90 degree. Fine. This one. Say F. It is being exerted at a particular angle. Let's call it theta. Like variables, we use an angle theta here. So this time, this distance R or D, if I say D, the distance between the force point and the pivot point is D. This is not a perpendicular distance because the force, the angle between the F and D is not 90. So I should not say that it is a But according to the formula, if I want to find out the torque, so torque tau equals to force into perpendicular distance between the force and pivot point. So this is the basic problem, that we need to find out the perpendicular distance. So what should we do? I will try to draw a perpendicular. If I increase this line in this way, and if I try to subtend a perpendicular or draw a perpendicular over this line at this point, let's call this point O, A and B. So it is a perpendicular. So this distance OB would be a perpendicular distance between the pivot and the force line. Okay. So if I try to implement this formula, so tau would be force into perpendicular distance, which is actually OB. So our target is to find out the value of OB, because the OB is not given, only the actual distance is given D and the force. So in this triangle, let's check in this triangle. In triangle OAB, if you see in this triangle OAB, you are having the value of hypotenuse, and you need to find out the value of perpendicular. Which angle provides a relation between the hypotenuse and the perpendicular? Obviously sin theta. We know that sin theta is perpendicular OB upon hypotenuse, which is actually D. So what is the value of OB? So OB would be D sin theta, where theta is the angle between F and D. Okay, so let's put the value of OB here. So torque would be, so tau equals to F D sin theta. This is the universal formula of torque. Universal means at any angle you can find out the torque, and you can even find out the condition when we will get maximum torque or when we will get minimum torque, but just by changing the angle, not by changing the perpendicular distance, or not changing the distance or the force. By just changing the angle, you can change the value of torque. So the final formula is of the torque is Fd sin theta, where theta is the angle between force F and distance D. This is the universal formula. And for the perpendicular distance, if D is the perpendicular distance, then theta would be 90. If theta is 90, let's check. If theta is 90, so torque is Fd sin 90. The value of sin 90 is 1. So torque is F into D, force into perpendicular distance. So this is the universal formula. It is. We can find out torque for any case. 0 degree, 90 degree, 180 degree, you can find out the value of torque. I hope this universal formula is clear for you. And now let's move to the direction, or to discuss about the direction of torque. How can we discuss the direction of torque? Means obviously rotational effect it is developing, so it must have a direction. So how can we discuss about the direction of torque? So actually it is something related to vectors, and you will study actually study about this in depth in 11th class. But right now I am going to tell you a trick to discuss about the direction of torque. Actually it works on Maxwell's right hand thumb rule. Just keep your right hand, palm and thumb at 90 degree. So if the palm's natural orientation is representing the effect of rotation, means the direction of rotation, then your thumb will represent the direction of torque. So obviously if the rotational effect is anti-clockwise, it will give you a positive direction of torque, means normally outwards, perpendicularly outwards. It is called positive torque. And if the rotational effect is clockwise, so it will give you a negative torque or a downward torque. Okay. So this is the discussion of the direction. So for anti-clockwise, we call it usually anti-clockwise torque, but actually it is a positive torque. Positive. Okay. Whenever we talk about anti-clockwise torque, it should be actually taken as positive. And for clockwise torque, it should be taken as negative. Okay. Anti-clockwise, this rotational effect, and the clockwise, this one. So you just need to keep this thing in your mind that we will pay attention on the sign of the torques, positive torque and the negative torques. I hope this entire thing about the moment of force and the torque is very clear for you. Now let's talk about the couple forces. Actually, we are going to implement two equal and opposite forces. In real life, we usually produce torque with the help of, or moment of force with the help of two forces, not one usually. Whenever during opening a bottle's cap or marker's board, we can say this tip point. When we try to open it, actually we are exerting two couple forces equal and opposite direction on the opposite ends. Such forces are called couple forces, and we try to introduce a formula for it. Let me tell you what will be the effect. It is simply called couple, or sometimes it is known as couple forces. These are actually two forces, and suppose we are talking about this rod again, but this time something in between, it is a pivot point, and two equal and opposite forces, one in this direction let's say F, and another one on its opposite end. If this end is A, another end is B, and the center is O, so F. So these two forces which are equal and opposite, or if I say F1 and F2, so F1 must be equal to minus F2. There are two conditions to define as a couple these forces. First is these forces must be equal and opposite, and second thing, F1 and F2 must act on the opposite ends. Okay, of a line. They must act on the opposite ends of a line which is actually joining it. Okay, so if I say this is the imaginary line which is joining point A and B, force points A and B, then these forces must act on the opposite ends of this line, not on the same point, on the opposite ends, F1 and F2, and they should be equal by values and opposite by nature. So these two conditions, if these two conditions are satisfied, then we call them couple forces, and usually they will be represented by simply F. So obviously these two forces are producing a combined rotational effect. You can see it is producing, let's say the value magnitude is being represented by these type of boxes. So equals to, let's call it F. So these two forces, I would like to represent it like F. So they are producing the same directional torque. You can see about this point O, this force is trying to rotate it in this direction, or I should say anti-clockwise. It is trying to rotate in anti-clockwise. So both forces are producing two torques of the same direction. So torque, if I say torque due to F1 is tau 1, so force into perpendicular distance. If I try to represent the perpendicular gap between them is d, so it would be d by 2. If this point is lying exactly in the center, it is also d by 2. So torque due to F1 is force into perpendicular distance. Force is F1 into perpendicular distance is d by 2. Okay, the value of F1 is actually F, because direction we have discussed, it should be positive right now. So F into d by 2. And in the same way, torque due to F2, it is, let's call it tau 2 equals to F2 into d by 2, right? Or we can write tau 2 equals to F into d by 2 in the same direction. So I will write the directions anti-clockwise, anti-clockwise. You can see simply. So anti-clockwise, same, anti-clockwise. So what will be the net torque on the rod? So the total torque these two, and if you try to add these two, so 2FD upon 2. So 2 to 2 will get cancelled. After adding these two, you will simply get F into D. But this time D is not the perpendicular distance of the force from the pivot. Actually, D is the perpendicular distance between the couple. This is the fact. When we talk about torque due to couple or moment of force due to couple, D is the perpendicular distance between the couple, not force and the we can say pivot point. Okay, so you just need to keep this in your mind. Here D is the perpendicular distance between the couple. Okay, so this is the formula. So SI unit will remain same. Torque, it doesn't matter that which kind of torque we are talking about. Torques, SI unit will remain same. Newton meter or CGS unit, dyne centimeter. Or you can even find out in terms of you can replace Newton meter by kgf, kilogram force. It's your choice according to the question. So I hope torque due to couple force is very clear for you. You can pause the video and copy the content and prepare your notes also properly. Now let's talk about equilibrium. We know about the couple forces and the moment of couple also. The means the total torque due to developed due to the couple forces. Okay. Now let's talk about the equilibrium, because equilibrium means it's a condition of balancing, or we can say when the system is balanced, we call it an equilibrium. But which kind of balance? Actually, when we talk about in physics about the equilibrium, so basically equilibrium means the net effect of all forces or the net force acting on a system or a body is zero. Net force is zero, or the total combined effect of all the forces acting on the body is zero. At that time, body is said to be in equilibrium. Okay, there are two types of equilibrium. When the body is in rest, and listen, one thing we need to pay attention, that equilibrium doesn't mean that no force is acting on the body. If we say no forces are being acted on the body, it means that we are not talking about any effect of force. Right now we are talking about that multiple forces, more than two or more than forces are actually acting on the body, and the resultant effect of all forces is zero. At that time, body is said to be in equilibrium. Okay. So for an example, suppose a body is lying on a table. This example actually we had discussed this thing in 9th class also. But suppose a body is placed on a table, so obviously its weight is acting in downward direction. Its weight, it's a kind of force, gravitational force, is acting in downward direction, and the reaction of the table, reaction of the table is acting in the upward direction. And if this reaction is mathematically equal to its weight, so ultimately body will not move even in downward direction or in upward direction. It doesn't matter. Okay, actually how many forces are acting on the body, it doesn't matter. Net effect of the forces must be zero. Then the body is said to be in equilibrium. So this block or this body is in equilibrium because the net effect of all these two forces is zero. So that type of equilibrium is called static equilibrium because body is at rest. It is called static equilibrium. But if a body is in motion, with a constant speed or constant velocity, body is in motion with a constant velocity, which means if we want to move a body in a particular direction from rest, so obviously we need to apply a force, but it doesn't mean that the body cannot be in equilibrium. Obviously here we are trying to apply a force in forward direction, but if we say that a friction force is acting in a positive direction, and mathematically F and small f are equal and opposite. So ultimately total force is net force is 0. So still body is in equilibrium, but it is during this body is moving, it is not in rest. So that type of equilibrium is called dynamic equilibrium. Dynamic equilibrium. Okay, so there are two types of equilibrium: static equilibrium and dynamic equilibrium. Rotational equilibrium, if the net torque acting on a body, because the rotation effect of force is called torque. So if the net force is 0, obviously net torque must be 0. So that type of equilibrium means the equilibrium during the rotational motion is called rotational equilibrium. It's a type of dynamic equilibrium because obviously body is in motion. So there is a category of dynamic equilibrium: translational dynamic equilibrium and rotational dynamic equilibrium. So right now we are focusing on dynamic equilibrium in rotational motion. Okay, so let's see. With an example I will try to introduce this. So let's take an example of a rod which is being balanced about a point about which it can rotate either in the clockwise direction or in anti-clockwise direction. So this point is called simply fulcrum. You will study about this in machines also. So this point is called fulcrum, and right now you can imagine it as a pivot point because about it this rod can rotate. So suppose we are exerting two different forces, one which is trying to produce a clockwise torque, another one which is trying to produce anti-clockwise torque. Listen, it is nothing related to couple forces. Couple forces were equal and opposite forces. These are producing two different opposite torques, not the same torque. Okay, so this force is trying to produce some kind of clockwise torque and this force is trying to produce some kind of anti-clockwise torque. And it is not necessary that they are acting at the same distance from the fulcrum or the pivot point. Let's say distance d2 and the distance d1. Okay, from these points. So if the body is in rotational equilibrium, if the body is in rotational equilibrium, if the body is in rotational equilibrium, so I should say net torque acting on the body. The question is the net torque must be 0. So net torque is net torque is 0. It means total anti-clockwise torque must be equal to total clockwise torque. So that's why net torque will become 0. Otherwise, if the net anti-clockwise torque is greater than clockwise, so it will start to rotate in anti-clockwise direction. If the clockwise torque is greater than anti-clockwise, it will start to rotate in clockwise direction. So if the body should remain in rotational equilibrium, so net torque must be 0. And what about the net torque 0? So let's see, net torque 0. So clockwise torque, I should say it's τ2, which is equals to F2 into D2, simply just through the generalized formula, and τ1 as F1 into D1. So if the net torque is 0, and with sign I just need to take anti-clockwise positive, clockwise negative. So τ2 as positive and τ1 as negative, and their sum must be 0. So τ2 and τ1 must be equal and opposite. This is the condition for rotational equilibrium. Means total anti-clockwise moment of force or torque must be equal to total clockwise moment of force or torque. Total anti-clockwise torque or moment of force must be equal to total clockwise torque or moment of force. So this condition is called principle of moments. It is called principle of moments. Okay, principle of moments. So principle of moments is total left side or anti-clockwise torque, or you can even write like this: toe left equals to toe right. Even you can write like this. Okay, so this is the condition. You will use these conditions for numerical problems also. Like let me demonstrate an example about this, so you will be able to solve the numerical problems. And actually I will take a live session also for your doubts and the numerical class. Okay, so let's take an example for this. Suppose we are assuming that I just would like to lift this block of mass, let's say M1 of 100 kg, okay, with the help of a rod of length 2 meter, and the fulcrum F is being placed at a distance of 0.5 meter from another end. Okay, and we are exerting an effort or a force F, or we should call it effort E on its another end. So how much effort is required to lift this block of mass 100 kg? Let's take G as 10 meter per second square. Okay, so the question is to find out the force or the effort, or mass by mass we can even measure it. Okay, how much mass is required in terms of mass, it can be asked. How much mass is required to be placed on this end so that it can lift this. So first thing, we need to find out the actual distance of the load, this given load, from the fulcrum. So this distance obviously it would be 1.5 meter since it is total 2 meter. So according to principle of moments, total torque, since this mass would produce a clockwise torque and this mass is producing anti-clockwise torque. So I would like to call it toe left and this one toe right. So according to principle of moments, toe left equals to toe right. So let's put the values. 100 mass force would be M into G. So 100 into 10. Force into perpendicular distance, that is 1.5, equals to effort, we need to find out E, into G also, if it is in terms of mass, 10, into perpendicular distance, that is 0.5. Okay, so E would be 10 to 10 will get cancelled. That's why I am telling you that only you can take directly masses. Okay, so E equals to 100 into 1.5 upon 0.5, or you can replace the points 3. So how much effort we need to apply? Obviously it would be 300 kg. Okay, now let's switch the game. This time this balance point has been shifted to this end, means this time it will become 0.5 meter and it will become 1.5 meter. So this time what will be the torque for the second case? Obviously condition will get changed. So this time 100 into perpendicular distance 0.5 equals to E into perpendicular distance 1.5. So E would be 100 into 0.5 upon 1.5, or we can replace it 3, and 300 is being divided by 3, so you will get E equals to 33.33 kg. Means only 33 kg mass would be sufficient to lift this 100 kg. So this is an interesting fact that by changing the perpendicular distance we can develop some kind of a rotational equilibrium in the bodies. Okay, so So I hope these kind of questions you will be able to solve. And now let's move to the next topic, that is center of gravity. So students, we have studied about the types of motion, torque, couple forces, couple torque or moment of couple we can say. After that, principle of moments, numericals based on that. And right now I am going to give you a little small homework. It is actually a theoretical homework. And one more thing we had discussed in the classroom during the school time, that what causes the circular motion. So two things I am giving you as a homework. And if you find any kind of doubt in those two topics, just drop a message, or just tell me in the live classes. I will remove those doubts, and actually I will explain those topics if you find unable to study those two topics. But hopefully these two topics are theoretical. And second thing, actually the basics of those two topics we had actually studied, and you have discussed this thing already in the classroom. So these two topics I am going to give you. One is center of gravity, and what is the center of gravity, what is actually center of gravity, and the measurement method or method to find it. Method to find it. Second homework is what is centripetal force. Centripetal force and centrifugal force. Actually, I will ask one interesting question from this. So first thing, you need to clear these two topics from your textbooks. Try to study these two topics. You will be able to find out that what is actually center of gravity and what are the centripetal and centrifugal forces. Okay. So this is your first lecture about the chapter, and in the next live session we will discuss about the numerical problems and these doubts from these two topics also. Fine. Thank you.